Jefferson County Post Sports with Mike Stanley. I'm Mike Stanley, and today's guest is Jefferson County Post columnist David Swann. David, thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, we'll start out today with our Jefferson County Post Player of the Week, sophomore Michaela Woolard. Michaela averaged 12.7 points per game and 3 wins this week over Greenville, Cherokee, and Dobbins-Bennett. With those 3 wins, the girls' team is now 22-6, also 12-2 in the IMAC conference. The IMAC tournament begins this Monday, February 9th at South Doyle High School. Your Jefferson County Lady Patriots will not play until Friday, and that game will be at 7 o'clock at South Doyle High School. On the boys' side this week, they defeated Greenville and Cherokee, but they fell to Dobbins-Bennett on Thursday night, 50-37. Chris Poore was unhappy with the team, says that the passion that was there earlier in the season just isn't there right now, which is a critical time now going into district tournament time, and then of course when region comes along after that. But as it was, Jefferson County is still 23-6 on the season, 13-1 in the conference. They as well will play on Friday night at 8:30. We'll now move forward in today's show where we're going to talk mostly about University of Tennessee's signing class that happened obviously on National Signing Day on Wednesday. They were able to secure a top 5 class nationally and number 2 class overall in the SEC. David, you have to be excited about Butch Jones and what he's doing as far as recruiting and staff-wise as well, but you know he almost has to be labeled the closer.
Yeah, that's his role on this recruiting staff. He comes in and closes the deal, and he is really good at it.
Yeah, you know, Zach Azani was the recruiting coordinator, and he gets everybody out there, but then Butch just comes in and says, "Hey, you're coming to Tennessee," and they do.
Yeah, and Drew Richmond is a perfect example of that. Butch kind of took that recruiting over, and he's done that on several players, and he really closes the deal.
Yeah, with this class, Tennessee had 4 5-star recruits per Rivals.com, and that was the most in any one class since 2007, and the most in the last 4 classes combined. And that really says something about where this program's headed.
Yeah, it's an indicator that Tennessee is getting back to where they belong.
Yeah, and of course one of those 5-star recruits being Khalil McKenzie, a 5-star defensive tackle out of Concord, California, and really was probably the best recruiter during this recruiting season.
Yeah, one of the lines the coaches said that struck me was. Everyone was afraid to decommit because they were afraid of Khalil.
Yeah,
that's the kind of forceful personality he has, and he combines that with tremendous talent.
Yeah, well, of course, he's 6'3", 340 pounds. You probably should be a little afraid of Khalil. He's also the son of former volunteer Reggie McKenzie, who is also, I think, the Oakland Raiders general manager. So he's going to be able to help Tennessee on the field, and you got to think he's going to be able to help them off the field as well.
Absolutely. One of the great things about this recruiting class, Khalil in particular, is their recruiting personalities of people who like to win, know how to win, and know how to work toward that goal. And with Khalil's connections as well as his personality, I think that helps Butch move toward that goal.
Mm-hmm. Another 5-star recruit that they had was running back Alvin Kamara out of the junior college ranks, out of Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. He is maybe, I won't say the exact opposite of what we have in Jalen Hurd, but he brings a whole different dimension of speed than Jalen Hurd has.
Great compliment to Jalen Hurd. Mm-hmm. Jalen is the the thunder and he's the lightning, so
Yeah.
to speak. And he's a threat to go all the way anytime he touches the ball. And we've kind of been missing that in the Tennessee offense. As good as Jalen has been, we've been missing a little bit of that, and he's going to bring that right away.
Yeah, definitely. You saw at times last year, Jalen would have that initial burst, break into the secondary, but he'd always get caught. It seems like. Another thing about Alvin Kamara was out of high school, he was the number 1 ranked tailback, all-purpose back, coming out of high school, committed to Alabama, played a season in Alabama, then chose the JUCO ranks. Anytime you can get somebody who was originally committed to Alabama, it has to feel like a win for Tennessee.
Absolutely, and I think that goes a long way in the recruiting process.
Mm-hmm.
When you can say, hey, it's Alabama or Tennessee, why don't you come talk to Alvin and see how he feels about it?
Yeah. Even more so, another 5-star recruit being Kyle Phillips out of Nashville, Tennessee, Hillsborough High School, was actually a big lean toward LSU, and kind of ironic that John Chavis, former Tennessee defense coordinator, leaves LSU, and that leaves Phillips coming to Tennessee.
Got to have a little luck when you recruit, and that was one of those fortunate situations and a big win for the Vols.
Yeah.
You've got to hold down your home state, and arguably the top or second rated player in the state, along with Drew Richmond, and just a huge get. What a terror off the edge this guy is. He's amazing.
Yeah, the only time I had gotten a chance to see him play was in the Army All-American game, and of course, I think it was close to the last play of the game. He runs down the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country, Torrance Gibson, who committed to Ohio State. He runs him down from behind, and that kind of made me feel good as a Tennessee Volunteer fan, and I'm sure it made most people feel good.
Absolutely. Well, he's got the perfect combination for a defense fan. He's got the size to play right away, but he's got such an amazing burst off the line of scrimmage, and he ducks his shoulder and gets around the corner faster than most freshmen can do. He's ready to play early on, provided he's healthy. He's got a little shoulder injury going on, and he's going to have to overcome that.
Yeah, I think he'll be, especially, I mean, I don't want to say he won't play next year, but after Kurt Magid leaves, him and Barnett on the ends will be a terror, just like Barnett and Magid are now.
Absolutely.
I think, Barnett was able to come in and play as a freshman. He's got a little bit bigger body frame than maybe Kyle Phillips does, but absolutely he is going to be able to, I think push to play right away. Another 5-star guy, of course, David has already mentioned, is Drew Richmond, 5-star offensive tackle out of the Memphis area, the number 1 player in the state of Tennessee, was committed to Ole Miss until Tuesday. National Signing Day was on Wednesday, and he decommitted from Ole Miss, and of course signed with Tennessee on National Signing Day.
A lot of drama with that recruitment. Even down the stretch, Tennessee had to clear their name a little bit. They had a couple hours there where they weren't able to call Drew because Ole Miss was crying foul. But Tennessee was cleared of anything going on with that, and they were able to continue that recruitment. And what a big get at a position of need. You could say that offensive tackle has been the position that's the hardest for Butch Jones to recruit to, but not anymore. Drew Richmond really solves that problem in a big way.
Yeah. Well, not only Drew Richmond, but he went after offensive linemen in this class, was able to get them. Drew Richmond, of course, being the stud and who will probably play from day one. Kind of reminds you a lot of maybe a Juwan James, who is now with the Miami Dolphins. He kind of reminds you of him if you look at his overall build. He's not overly heavy as you would see some offensive linemen. He's kind of if there is a way to do it, he is a lean 310 pounds. But he's got a nice frame. He adds muscle, and I think he'll be a starter from day one.
Yeah, he's one of those rare 300+ pounders that you can say is an athlete. He moves his feet really well. He's a tremendous athlete. Provided he keeps his head on straight and works hard, that's a guy who's going to play in the NFL one day.
Oh yeah, I think there's no question about that. And there were a lot of speculation around Drew Richmond, like as you said. But I think the one that gave Tennessee fans the scare was on Tuesday he decommits. Of course, he was on campus this past weekend. So it just automatically, everybody assumed that he was going to pick Tennessee. Well, the tweet came out that, hey, Drew Richmond has elected Tennessee and has signed with him. Drew Richmond then sends out a tweet and says, I haven't faxed my paperwork into anybody yet. And so Vol Nation kind of went, what's going on? And there was like a 5 to 10 minute panic period for Vol Nation.
Absolutely. You know, that story kind of illustrates the type of personality that this class has.
Mm-hmm.
They like to play around a little bit. They're really confident, very confident. They play around with their coaches a little bit, but they just exude that air of, I'm going to be successful. And that's something that Tennessee has been missing up until the arrival of Butch Jones, and he's trying to bring that back. And I really think Drew, I think he had a little fun with the Tennessee fan base there.
Yeah. I would say that probably had something to do with it. Of course, you had Jack Jones, who is the number 3 player in the state of Tennessee, and he also plays offensive tackle from over Murfreesboro. I think him and Khalil actually had a little contest on who was actually the better recruiter.
Yeah, Jack went out of his way to recruit. He was very active, and he's got such a good personality for that as well. He's been described as a teddy bear off the field, but one of the nastiest players you will ever see on the field.
Yeah,
loves to pile drive people into the turf.
Yeah, I think Butch said it in his opening press conference when he was first hired at Tennessee that, hey, we're going to build a wall around the state of Tennessee. And I think they got the top 3 players in the state of Tennessee, and also I think 6 out of the top 9 or something along those lines. So he's been able to build that wall around Tennessee, and that's really helped him, especially in recruiting.
Absolutely. You could make an argument that they got the people in Tennessee that they wanted. Mm-hmm. They even turned down some top players that went other places in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And when you get to the point where you're selecting versus having to beg players to come, that's a good sign. Yeah,
one of those players being Dylan Jackson out of Maryville. It was speculated that teams were he wanted to play defensive line in college. Well, he's going to play offensive line in college. Yes. There was no way around it. Other teams used that against Tennessee in recruiting, saying, hey, we're going to let you play defensive line if you come here. Ultimately signs with Stanford, and you got to think that maybe in the Pac-12, maybe he may play defensive line. It'd be tough for him, I think.
Particularly at Stanford, they run that 3-4 defense, and he's going to have a chance to play defensive line. That's going to be a better location. Mm-hmm. It works out for the best for him as well. Yeah. He gets a place where he's going to get a shot at what he wants to do, mm-hmm. plus a great education. So, you can't fault the kid for what went on, and in fact, I think Tennessee may have been a heavy part of that decision.
Yeah. Of course, you have the quarterbacks in this class, the kind of unheard of, taking 3 4-star quarterbacks in the same class, and it kind of had everybody else upset at Tennessee. Well, why would you go to Tennessee? How are you going to play 3 4-stars at one time? Of course, that'll work itself. Of course, one of those quarterbacks being Juwan Jennings, out of Murfreesboro, in-state kid, that most people assumed that he was just an athlete playing quarterback. You get that a lot in high school. He really proved his worth there in his senior year at Blackman High School.
Yeah, huge strides his senior year. Mm-hmm. Really developed a lot more technique, a lot better passing his senior year, but that athleticism. Yeah, that if he can maintain and continue to grow as a quarterback, that athleticism will be a really huge asset for the Vols. If he can't, he can still play about 2 or 3 other positions.
Yeah. I think he was quoted saying that if he don't play quarterback at University of Tennessee, it'll be his own fault.
Yeah.
So I think that's a telltale story of hey, I'm willing to do basically whatever. If I'm not good enough to play quarterback, hey, I'll play somewhere else just to play at Tennessee.
Well, and that confidence as well. We spoke about the confidence of this group. The quarterbacks really are the epitome of that confidence. None of them asked about other quarterbacks that were being recruited. They didn't care.
Yeah.
They were confident in their own abilities. They were ready to go out and compete and earn a spot. And that type of attitude is what championships are built on. Mm-hmm. It's more than just talent. And all 3 of them really exhibit that.
Yeah. Of course, one of them being Sharon Jones out of California, another 4-star quarterback. Really, I think most people were thinking he may be probably the best passer out of this quarterback class. Quentin Dormady as well, but Jones being a guy that was committed to Florida kind of makes this one just a little more sweet than the rest of the quarterbacks, just because he was committed to Florida.
It really does, and he's the complete package. He really he can do everything you want in this offense. He can run the spread option. He can pass. He's got a really good touch on the ball. Maybe not the biggest arm in the world, but really a solid passer. And again, he may be the most confident, maybe even more than Khalil McKenzie, if you can believe that. He may be the most confident on this entire squad.
Yeah. Of course, you got Quentin Dormady out of Texas, another 4-star quarterback, who was not heavily recruited after his junior season. Of course, he went down with injury, and but just I guess he wowed everybody at camps. As soon as he went to a camp, boom, Alabama had offered him, and then a bunch of other SEC schools, Texas of course offered him, and he just felt comfortable at Tennessee, and I guess we're grateful for it.
Absolutely. Coach's son, that's always nice to have. And if I remember correctly, I believe Gruden was hanging around at the camp that Dormady was in, and I believe he got the stamp of approval from John Gruden, which isn't a bad stamp of approval either.
No, not at all. I think moving forward, we talked a little bit about Alvin Kamara being the running back, the lightning guy in the class. There also
John Kelly.
John Kelly, yes. I was sitting there trying to.
Yeah,
I knew it was John, but I couldn't remember his last name.
And he's kind of the forgotten guy.
He is, and I think they're really excited. I know Robert Gillespie, the running back coach at Tennessee, was really excited the day he committed. Saying, man, this guy brings just another element of speed.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Haven't checked there 40 times. I'm not sure who's faster between him and Kamara. But evidently, this kid is got the speed.
Kelly's an interesting story for Tennessee, I believe. I think he's one of those that they never thought they could get. And once they realized that they had a shot at him, he went straight to the top of their running back board.
Yeah.
He's not just a speed guy. He's got that great speed like you talked about, but he runs with great lean and breaks tackles. And I think he's going to be one of those all-around backs. He's already about 200 pounds, which for an incoming freshman is pretty good size for a running back. I think you're going to see big things from him. And again, another guy with competitive character. Another guy that when you look at him, he excels in everything he does.
Right.
It's not just, I'm a good running back. No matter what position he plays, no matter whether it's academics or athletics, he excels.
Yeah, I think and another guy besides Kelly that's going to be important in this class, although we are okay at wide receiver, but with Ryan Jenkins deciding to transfer and possibly Vic Wharton, you have Preston Williams coming in as many thought he was a 5-star guy. Rivals had him as a 4-star. He's not a guy that lacks any confidence whatsoever. Of course, going down to Auburn, the story about him wearing Tennessee stuff. Of course, he has some character issues possibly that they'll need to iron out. But with him committing and signing, Zach Kazani, the wide receivers coach at Tennessee, his first response was, "I'm going to have my hands full."
Absolutely. I smiled as soon as you mentioned Preston. He goes by the Resort.
Yeah.
And flamboyant would be a great way to describe him. I think Tennessee fans are probably going to either smile or frown every time they hear his name. You're going to know about him.
Yeah.
And he's got a little bit of a knee injury he's trying to recover from, and I think maybe some of the recruiting services kind of marked him down a little bit because of that. But provided he is healthy, and provided he doesn't decide to go off to New York and have a modeling career, he is going to make a huge impact on the balls. Real playmaker.
Yeah.
You're talking about the level of playmaker that will remind you of the great Tennessee receivers. Now, once again, a little bit of Kelly Washington, a little bit of that flamboyant personality. We'll see how Zach Kazani can handle that, but really a great player.
Coming in, he gives you an automatic, an instant home run threat.
Yes.
That Tennessee's receivers are great right now, but they don't have the guy that's going to burn you deep every play. And I think Preston Williams is going to be that guy. He's going to be able to get behind the defense, and you'll see Josh Dobbs benefit from it. You'll see Marquez North benefit from it, and as well as all the other receivers.
Yeah. He gets deep without having to outrun people. He's a little bit like Carl Pickens that way. I'm not comparing him to Carl. He doesn't even play the same way as Carl, but he's got that ability to get deep. Even if you're right there with him, he's just going to go up over the top of you and make a play.
Right. Kind of a strider, if you will. He
absolutely.
Takes long strides. Let's move over a little bit into the defensive side of the ball. Of course, Khalil McKenzie is getting all the love. Kyle Phillips is getting love. But there's other guys on the defensive side that just make you say, man, that's exciting. We're going to be excited to watch. One of those guys being, I think, Shy Tuttle out of the Charlotte, North Carolina area, 4-star defensive tackle. He's bigger than Khalil, maybe not as fast as Khalil, but has a motor that you're gonna love watching this kid play. He's gonna give you 100% every play.
Yeah, Khalil is one of those guys that is unusual. You don't run across that kind of player.
Right.
You're gonna run across a Shy, but he's will remind you of those classic Tennessee defensive tackles. Khalil's not gonna remind you of anybody. Right. You're gonna remember him as unique. But Shy is gonna be one of those guys that you go, oh, that's what we've had and we have been missing the last few years. And you put the two of them side by side, and that's quite a force.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Of course, with Cortez Satt being a 4-star outside linebacker from Milton, Georgia. I had the chance to watch him play in the Arby's Classic in basketball when Jefferson County played up there, and I mean he's just an athlete. I mean he's a freakish athlete that just so happens to play outside linebacker. He competed in the dunk contest there. Was throwing oops off the backboard to himself, catching it, windmilling. I mean it was almost ridiculous to see. Man, he is so athletic. And I think he's going to remind people a lot of maybe like a Jalen Reeves-Maybin kind of guy.
Absolutely. And in this modern football where we're going with the no-huddle offense, these speed offenses like this, spreading the field around, that kind of guy is indispensable. He's a guy who, if you really needed him to, against a traditional offense, he could play safety. He's not going to do that at Tennessee. Right. But you could put him in space and he's going to make a play. But he's big enough that he can put on the weight and he can play in the box. So he's one of those guys that can do both for you. You just can't have enough of those players when you're playing the Auburns of the world and they're trying to spread you out.
Right, and primarily he'll be matched up with either a running back, maybe a slot receiver, which you don't really want that. But if you line him up against a running back, you have to like Tennessee's chances out there on the edge with him guarding a running back that runs a 4.5 and him running a 4.5 as well. So
you turn a mismatch into an even contest.
Right.
And that's all you can hope for when you're playing those spread offenses.
Yeah. Moving forward, who do you think will have the biggest impact from day one? Maybe besides Khalil McKenzie.
Yeah, he's the obvious choice. Right. I mean, it's a position of need. Plus, he's ready to play from day one. But besides Khalil, I mean, you're looking at Alvin Kamara. He's going to have to play. We don't have a lot of depth at Tennessee at the running back position. He's already got experience at major college football. He knows what it's about. He's a home run threat. He's going to be someone that's relied on right off the bat. And I think he's going to end up being Jalen Hurd's best friend on the field because he's going to take a lot of pressure off of Jalen and he's going to put a lot of pressure on defenses. And I think you're going to see Jalen break more long runs because of Alvin Kamara.
Well, not only with him being the home run guy, but not only with him playing at Alabama for a season. Hutchinson Community College is known for guys that have transferred in from big schools. So it's not like he was playing with or against just kind of low-level talent. He was playing against Division I prospects, even at a junior college.
Cordero Patterson's junior college. So we've had some successful players from there, and I think he was well coached there. He played against good competition there. I think he'll be ready to go. Another guy that jumps out to me is Justin Martin. And Justin Martin is he's got that prototypical size and speed that you're looking for as a corner. We're a little thin at corner. We've got 2 starters returning, but we don't have a lot of depth there, and I think that he's going to make an impact pretty early.
Yeah, I think Justin Martin being one of those guys. Of course, you move to the offensive side. Of course, Drew Richmond's going to have to play immediately. Jack Jones, I think, will push for playing time immediately on the offensive line, just because Tennessee's so thin there, and also I think Tennessee's just not that talented on the offensive line.
The offensive and defensive lines are the place where the biggest improvement was made in this recruiting class, and you're going to see a huge impact in both those places. Mm-hmm. At that line of scrimmage is so important in the Southeastern Conference, and to upgrade both the offensive line with 5 offensive linemen, and all of them physically what you're looking for in an offensive lineman, and then 6 defensive linemen, again, all of them physically what you're looking for. But perhaps maybe Andrew Butcher is not the prototype, but what a motor guy that guy is. When you bring that number of linemen in, you really made huge strides to improving your team.
Yeah, I think another offensive lineman we haven't touched on yet is Venzel Boulware. That he comes from the same high school as Eric Berry, and the Berry twins as well. That's going to be a guy that's going to be fun to watch. Really was the Tennessee's only question on signing day was, will he flip to Ohio State when Drew Richmond comes? He actually faxed in his stuff before Drew Richmond, so it actually worked out great for Tennessee both ways, because Ohio State was really coming on strong there at the end.
And your recruiting is going well when you're holding off Ohio State, when you're holding off a Georgia, or you're even allowing Georgia to take a player that you're turning down.
Right.
That's when you know your recruiting is going well. And I love Venzel Boulware. He's a guy who can play all the way across the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think he's got the athleticism to even play center if you wanted him to. He can play from tackle to tackle. Great player. A little nasty, and that's a theme that you see with the offensive linemen this year. Is they're a little nasty, and I mentioned this earlier. Tennessee has a prototype that they're looking for now, and it's pretty obvious. You can see it at linebacker, you can see it at defensive end, you can see it at offensive lineman. They have physical characteristics that they're looking for, and they really nailed them this year. Yeah. They were at every position. The physicality of this team fits what Butch Jones is looking for.
Exactly, and you talked about the physicality, and we've talked about Khalil McKenzie being kind of a good character guy, but he's another one of those nasty players. Yeah. If you watch his film, he gets the ball carrier, and he's not just, hey, I'm going to wrap you up, I'm going to tap you. He's wrapping you up, and he's like, I'm probably going to drive you 3 or 4 foot into the ground if it's possible.
Well, he makes 300-pound high school All-American linemen look like middle school boys.
Yeah.
He just runs over the top of them. He is a man. The only time I've seen a player do something like that was Albert Hansel. He used to have that ability. And Khalil's a very different player than Albert, and definitely different off the field than Albert. But that power coming in as a true freshman, you just don't see that very often. And that nasty disposition that he has is really across the board. I mean, like we said, Andrew Butcher, he's a nasty sort of dude on the field, and Jack Jones is a nasty sort of dude on the field. That's pervasive. Now, one guy that really strikes me on that defensive line is Darrell Taylor. And we were talking about prototypes. You can't draw up a defensive end that's more of a prototype than Darrell Taylor.
Yeah.
The athleticism that he has, the speed that he has. This is a guy who could legitimately play wide receiver in college if he wanted to, but he's 230 pounds, and that, again, you hesitate throwing out names like this, but the name that comes to mind is Leonard Little, in that athleticism that he has. Now, will he have that impact? Who knows whether he'll have that kind of impact. Yeah. But when you can get a guy like that to go with Phillips, to go with McKenzie, to go with Tuttle, that's one heck of an afterthought, if you will.
Right. Well, and I smiled when you said his name, because I was going to ask you who was the biggest sleeper, and to me, that's probably the biggest sleeper in this class. Because McKenzie and because of Tuttle, because of Phillips that are getting all the publicity from the media. Darrell Taylor's kind of just hanging out here. He's like, hey guys, I'm here, and you'll probably see me before too long.
Oh yeah, he's going to have a huge impact. A couple of other guys that are kind of sleepers in my mind are a couple of linebackers. Austin Smith. I think Austin Smith, he's a 3-star guy. A lot of people didn't think much about him. He comes from a high school program where they turn out tons of talent all the time. He's not asked to carry that team. Right. He's just a part of that team. Yep. But he can really do it all. I mean, you're talking about a guy who runs like a lot of safeties run, but has the size of a defensive end and can rush off the edge. He's a guy who reminds me a little bit of a Kurt Magette type, that you're going to move around all over the field and will have an impact. And for a 3-star, to get a 3-star like that, I'm not so sure he wasn't even at the top of Tennessee's linebacker board.
Yeah.
And then the guy in the middle, Darren Kirkland Jr. When you draw up a middle linebacker, you want sideline to sideline. You want someone who's physical at the line of scrimmage, you can take on a back, and you want someone who's smart. Someone who can get players in the right position, and he has all of that. He really fits all of that well. When they did the testing at the Thornton Center, when he early enrolled, he's an early enrollee. They say he's got somewhat of a photographic memory, and for a middle linebacker, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
It is good, and he kind of gets pushed back too. A big recruit out of Indianapolis. Guys went up there to watch him sign. He didn't sign on National Signing Day. He signed a little before, but he's kind of a guy that gets pushed to the back burner a little bit. And you think about the guys that are being pushed to the back burner that would be studs. Say if South Carolina got them, or I don't want to even throw out Vanderbilt, but we will. We'll say if Vanderbilt got them, they would be drooling over these guys.
That would be the marquee player in that class.
And we're talking about them being on the back burner of this class. That just proves how great that this recruiting season went for Tennessee. How great that Bush Jones and Zach Azzani as the recruiting coordinator have done. Of course, now Robert Gillespie. It was announced yesterday. Robert Gillespie will be our new recruiting coordinator. He'll get a little pay bump, as well as Zach Azzani being the passing game coordinator under now the new offensive coordinator, Mike DeBoer, who was the offensive coordinator at Michigan, hasn't been a coordinator in almost a decade, which kind of worries Tennessee fans. But you have to trust Butch, and you have to know Butch is comfortable with him, and he'll do what it takes.
Continuity. I mean, that's a key word there, and I understand that there's some reticence from Tennessee fans on that. And my first response was similar, but I did a little digging on him, and one of the things that struck me was when they played Florida in a bowl game. His last game before Lloyd Carr retired. And if you take a look at that game will put a lot of Tennessee fans' minds at ease. He went from the end of the season running a traditional I offense, power offense, and in the bowl season, he changed completely to almost the exact same offense that we run at Tennessee, that spread offense. He put that entire offense in 3 weeks.
Right.
And he pretty much ran the Florida Gators off the field. Tim Tebow led Florida Gators off the field with that offense. He obviously has a pretty intimate knowledge of it. Rumors are he helped Butch develop that offense. I think he knows it a lot more than Tennessee fans understand.
Right. Well, and then moving Azzani to the passing game coordinator gives somebody that's very familiar with this offense. And then, of course, Butch will have his say-so in this offense. And I think that played a major part in his offensive coordinator search. Mike Sanford was said to have a great interview. He kind of blew everybody away with the interview. So it was one of those things where Mike Sanford would be a great hire because he just interviewed with Ohio State and chose to not go to Ohio State. If he were to come to Tennessee, man, that'd be really big. But I think it came down to, and like Butch said, it came down to a comfort level with people, and with them coaching together in the early 2000s at Central Michigan. I think with Butch being able to say, hey, I want to keep this staff together, and then saying, I will still have an outlook on this offense, no matter who is the offensive coordinator. I think Mike Sanford maybe said, I'm going to bring in my own guys. Butch kind of said no, And the board being a guy, he's got NFL ties. He was the tight ends coach for Chicago. And then guys came out yesterday, Tom Brady. He was Tom Brady's quarterback coach or offensive coordinator at Michigan. Tom Brady came out and said, Tennessee's got a great guy. Mike Holmgren came out and said, Tennessee's got a great guy. So it kind of, the initial reaction of the fan base being, oh my goodness, what have we done? That kind of pushed it back to maybe, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and one of the silver linings with DeBoer's hire, even if you were skeptical about it, is that he's widely considered somewhat of a guru when it comes to zone blocking scheme.
Yeah.
And if there was an area of Tennessee's offense last year that fans were unhappy with, it would have been offensive line play.
Right.
And to bring in somebody as an offensive coordinator who's comfortable with blocking schemes and is able to provide some help to the offensive line coach in that capacity is really important.
Yeah, I think, of course, he was the offensive line coach at Michigan. Of course, that's where we need help. And with a lot of young talent coming in as freshmen this coming year with this recruiting class, he will be able to develop them maybe more quickly. Him and obviously the offensive line coach that we have in place now. I just think that it's going to turn out all right for Tennessee.
I think so. And, with the kind of talent that you have, talent wins at the end of the day. You put them in a good position, good coaches put them in a good position. You don't have to be a wizard. You just need to develop good, sound schemes. Butch Jones has a good sound scheme, and you've got to coach it well. And by all accounts, Mike Board is a teacher, and he'll be able to coach those schemes well. So I think Tennessee's going to be, I think we'll actually be pleasantly surprised with the improvements that we see in the offense, and maybe even we'll see some power gain at the goal line.
Yeah. Well, David, thanks for coming on with me.
Thanks for having me.
Again, Jefferson County will play Friday in the conference tournament. Both our Lady Patriots and Patriots as number 1 seeds in the IMAC tournament. I would also like to announce that the Jefferson County Eagles 10 and under baseball team will be having a chili supper. Donations are $5. It'll be February 21st from 5 until 8 p.m. at the Rescue Squad building in Dandridge. You can contact me on Twitter at Jefferson Post Sports, or you could email editor@jeffersoncountypost.com. For Jefferson County Post Sports with Mike Stanley, I'm Mike Stanley. David Swann, thanks for coming on.